Welcome back to my channel. What if I tell you that vampires were real and they was hiding amongst us right now? And I'm not talking about the Rudy, I'm a creature and I'm so alone. No. These are predatories. These are predators. Enjoy.
Well, allegedly, vampires walk as if they're human in New Orleans. It has been told over and over again over the last couple of centuries that New Orleans has its own vampires. And they cosplay as humans. They play in our face like, oh, I'm a vampire, ooh. But they're really vampires. Get your popcorn. Welcome back, YouTube. And for those who do not know me, hello, my name is Noah, and on this channel we talk about death, true crimes, haunted people, places, and things, spiritual reparations, and now you can fuck around and find out. If you are not subscribed, subscribe now. If you're not following me over on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, Lemon8, wherever I'm at, follow me there as well. We will be talking about the vampires of New Orleans because they do exist. I'm here to tell you that they exist because something is in New Orleans that is totally different from the rest of the United States. It is a portal, as we already know, but vampires live, breathe, walk with the living in that place. And we're going to be watching some viral TikToks. And as always, the creators will be tagged down below. Now, before we even start with the viral TikToks, I want to give a quick shout out, a quick thank you to everybody that got a reading from Psychic Source. Of course, Psychic Source is the biggest and largest psychic network to ever exist. If you have not gotten your reading, go ahead and click the link down below, because if you click the link down below, you will get up to 40 minutes for $19.80. Up to 40 minutes. I have not seen anybody get under 30 minutes for $19.80. Make sure y'all are getting your readings. But yeah, I'm going to play the TikToks consecutively, one after the other, because there's not a lot of discord that I can put into these videos. Y'all will see how haunted, how much of a portal New Orleans really is. We've done plenty of videos on New Orleans, and I always come back to the same conclusion, that it is the biggest portal in America. Vampire, loup-garous, werewolves, all of that in a bag of chips. So I'm just going to put the videos in. I'm going to speak Japanese at the end of this video and let y'all know what I feel is happening in New Orleans. Just take a look.
The vampires of Louisiana will always be one of my favorite topics. So tonight I'm going to tell you about one of my favorite tales, the tale of the Casket Girls. Now, if you've ever been to New Orleans or taken a ghost tour while you were there, you've probably stopped at the St. Ursuline's Convent, which is where a lot of this story centers around. Now, the most famous thing about this building, aside from being a very beautiful convent, is this third floor up here. Now, if you'll notice in this picture, you have these windows up top that are sealed shut. Not unusual, there are a lot of storms in New Orleans, but that's not the reason that these windows are shuttered. In fact, it has to do with the Casket Girls themselves. But before I get into that, I have to give a brief history, obviously. Now, just to do some scene setting, it's the early 1700s, and King Louis is trying to invigorate the colony of Louisiana. Now, keep in mind, this French territory at this time is massive. It includes places like Mobile, Alabama, or what would become Mobile, Alabama, and Biloxi, Mississippi. But there are fur traders and trappers and other workers who were in this colony at this time. But there's one thing that there's not many of, and that is women. So how do you solve the problem of a lack of women in a place with a whole lot of males? Well, you pull them out of the prisons. However, misbehaved women hardly make good wives, so another alternative was suggested. What if we take the girls who were in convents and orphanages and we send them to the colonies? This was perfect. They didn't have half the record as the ones who were in jail, more docile, and to make things a bit smoother for these women, we could coordinate with the Catholic Church to make lodging, housing, and food available for these women as they get acclimated and find their husbands. So obviously this is a win-win. Not only do we bolster the numbers of the colonies through these marriages and their offspring, but we also get to further entrench Catholicism in these new territories. Again, Win-win all around. But the problem started when the Casket Girls arrived. As an aside, did you know that the Casket Girls are considered to be the mothers of New Orleans? So, if you're a descendant of one of the Casket Girls, please let me know in the comments. Now, technically, they came in 3 batches. The first went to Mobile, Alabama. The second went to Biloxi, Mississippi. But the third, and most famously, the Casket Girls that we know and love, went to New Orleans. However, when they arrived, there was a lot to be desired. Now, truthfully, I'm not entirely sure what they were expecting when they bought girls over on a 3-month voyage from France, but it was definitely not what they expected, because when they walked off the boat, instead of getting supermodels, they got this right here. These girls were malnourished, they were pale, they were sickly, and they carried these suspicious little boxes with their belongings in them. Now, as you can see here, the boxes in this picture are quite small, and that's because the girls really didn't have much to their name. However, as lore goes, as storytelling advances, these boxes started to get bigger and bigger. Some stories say that the chests were not actually small carry-ons, but they were in fact full caskets, and they were possibly transporting bodies within them. And of course, that feeds the lore that we know of this story. Anyways, I digress. Now, eventually these girls would get married off, but until that happened, they would stay with these nuns in these convents and keep to themselves, which also fed that lore. These girls stuck together until, again, they made their matches. And sadly, their matches weren't always happy marriages. A lot of the men they married were either gone, they abandoned them, were abusive, and many of them were sold into prostitution to make a living for themselves, or they flat out disappeared, never to be seen or heard from again. So in short, the Casket Girls were trafficked and abused after they left the convents. But that's another story for another day. Now, after hearing about the mistreatment that the Casket Girls were suffering at the hands of their husbands, the king and the Catholic Church got involved and decided to send many of them back home. However, on the night that they were supposed to leave, they stored their belongings at the St. Ursuline's convent with the room locked. However, on the day of their departure, when the nuns went upstairs to grab the girls, they were all gone, and so were their belongings. It was as though they had never been there. Again, feeding those rumors of being vampires, or at least something supernatural. But again, I want to know what you guys thought of this story. Did you know about the Casket Girls? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you guys in my next video.
History books. Come here, let me stretch y'all out right fast, because this New Orleans hood history on the little vampire Casket Girls of Ursuline Convent. In 1727, the King of France sent over some girls to New Orleans so they could help populate. But these girls was the unwanted in France. They was the women of the night. Took them girls 6 months to get to New Orleans, and they all had their clothes in suitcases that they called le cassettes. We started calling them caskets. But them men didn't like them girls because they came over here pale and sick from that long journey. So them girls end up being prostitutes. Only place that would take them unwed prostitutes, dragging them caskets in, was the Ursuline Convent. Them nuns put them girls on the 3rd floor, and by the time they went and checked on them, there was nothing up there but the caskets. And they nailed that 3rd floor up and blessed it, and somebody still got 8 later on, I heard. Y'all could go see it for yourself, though. It's still there on Charters and Ursulines. I'm probably going to just meet you at Cafe Du Monde.
Story time about another true vampire encounter in New Orleans. This happened on Fat Tuesday, and the story came from a girl named Ness and her sister Jen. I said I could tag her too, so she's going to be in the caption. It's Fat Tuesday. Ness and Jen are partying, raging, having a great time when they meet this light-skinned black man with these amazing green eyes. That's literally how she described him. She said his eyes were mesmerizing. She said eventually his attention drifted to her sister Jen, even though they were both kind of feeling him. This was an all-day event. They had been drinking all day, partying all day, bar hopping all day, so they're talking to him for a little while, and they decide they're going to change venues. They don't exchange contact information. They don't care, whatever. So they're going bar to bar, and a little while later they end up at this other bar, and they're standing in line to get in, when all of a sudden they see him again. She said they must have just not noticed him at first, but he was also in line to get in this bar. He's in line behind them, so they turn around, they start talking to him, and when it comes time for them to go in, he gestures for them to go in first. From that point on, they were like hanging out with him, so he was going bar to bar with them. Every time they went to a new bar, he would let them go in first. But before they would go into each bar, he would ask them, like, do you want me to come in too? And she said Jen always answered the same way, which was, yeah, boo, come on in. So the 3 of them stay out late, like late, and the night is wearing down. All the people are starting to turn in for the night. Ness and her sister are like pretty wasted, so they're like, we're gonna go back to our hotel. And he's like, do you want me to walk you back? They're like, okay, we love a gentleman. So they let him walk them back to the hotel. When they get to the hotel, he takes Jen's hand in the middle of the street and starts slow dancing with her. She said they were in like a drunken haze, so it just added this other layer of like a magical evening, and they didn't really think anything of it. But then he leans into her neck and he opens his mouth as if he's about to bite her. His teeth like barely graze her neck, and she jerks back and she's like, I'm sorry, like I wasn't looking for anything. I was just having fun. Like I wasn't looking for anything like that. He's just staring at her, and she said he had this look of defeat on his face, but like there was another expression too, which they didn't didn't know what it was. And maybe it was just the streetlights, but she says she swears his face shifted. And this is such a common theme in all of these stories, I'm realizing. And he says, may I come in? And Ned says that both of them just got a chill. Like, they talked about it afterward. A chill ran through both of their bodies. So Jen snaps out of whatever trance she's in, and she just says no, very firmly.
See, that's very typical of vampire stories. It dates back way back then. Yes, vampires cannot enter in a home without permission, or enter in a place. None of that, vampires can't cross salt or garlic in the area, because it's holy, it's sacred. Because the first vampire that ever walked Earth was Judas Chalius. If you don't know who Judas was, he's the one who betrayed Jesus. Legend goes, he tried to commit suicide, tried to hang himself on aspen tree, the world's strongest tree in the world. But the rope snapped and he cursed it to a vampire. So you believe movies like Blade has silver? Yes, because they gave him 32 pieces of silver. And that same silver was blood money, which was blessed by the Catholic Church. They did not believe in Jesus at that time. So silver is another thing about vampires can't stand. Crossing water, salt, crucifixes, all that. If somebody comes up to you in the middle of the night and asks you, can they come in? Most likely they might be a vampire in certain regions, or a weird person. Because vampires cannot enter into a home without being asked permission first. That's basic vampire 101. Back to the video.
Literally the moment that the word left her lips, he just turned and started walking down the street. No goodbye, nothing, after they had spent hours and hours together. So they turn to look at each other and they're like, that was weird. And they turn back and he's just gone. They scan the street, don't see any trace of him. Like, he just vanished into thin air. So after she sent me the story, I emailed her back and I was like, can I just ask you how you came to the conclusion that he was a vampire, not just like a weirdo? And she was like, because he asked us so specifically if he could come in everywhere we were going. She said most people would have just gone bar to bar, like not needing permission to enter, but his hesitation was very apparent. Like, it was a public party. He could have gone anywhere he wanted. He also had very sharp, pointy canine teeth, which she said she's aware that some people have this, but that they thought the coincidence was too weird. And then at the end of the night, instead of going in for a kiss or whatever, if you think you're vibing with this girl, you're just going to try to bite her neck. Oh, another thing, apparently he was wearing an Eagles hoodie, and at some point in the night they had asked him like where he's from, and he said, I've lived here longer than you can imagine. So I don't know, apparently vampires are Eagles fans. I'm also on day 3 of trolling Netflix, and let me know if you want Fae, Leprechaun, or Duende stories next.
You believe in vampires? Yes. Let's talk about vampires, because what the there's been a TikTok.
Katie and Dana, I'm so happy that you guys are talking about real vampires. I have tea. I'm going to tell you about how I met real vampires and also about a crazy story where I was being fed on. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I'm a paranormal investigator. I also do a lot of research regarding the paranormal and folklore and cryptids. And about a year ago, I posted a video about my research on real vampires. The video wound up going viral, and real vampires wound up watching my video and reaching out to me. Because of this video about real vampires and me meeting real vampires, I also wound up meeting Ben Alan Kush, the owner of a paranormal production.
So I'm cutting this right here because I just seen like a bunch of other stories from TikTok and all that right there. Don't look like it's saying the real thing here. So I'm gonna look up something about everything. Cause that right there don't sound like that. This is a bunch of BS right here. It seems like. Here we go. Let's go ahead. Vampires in the Road. To the trailer. They say vampires live there. The church, yeah. Like, it might be somewhere. Anyway, let's go ahead and look it up though. I don't. Oh Lord. Here we go. Here's the Carlton Brothers Vampires of New Orleans. You gotta understand something. New Orleans burned down 2 times, and the church where they so-called cast the girls were at was not touched now at once. New Orleans got hit by the plague, everybody got sick. The church right there where the coffin girls at did not get nothing wrong. Yellow fever hit New Orleans.
After
nothing
my
happened on that
motorcycle
church.
crash, my leg was shattered in multiple places. 17 surgeries, infection.
Matter of fact, let's go here and I'll pull up a map here to this just to show you right here. Here you go. Let's better pull it up. Here's a map showing all the sightings that happened and everything, and leases. Here's the church that's been called the Vampire Church. And it's still today, standing, still today. You can go there. It's pretty much locked up during the daytime. As you can see right here. But as you can see right there. If we can load it up here. There you go, as you can see, it's all boarded up during the daytime. But at night, it comes to life. So yeah, vampires might be walking New Orleans. Who knows? Enjoy. Have a nice day.